The hum of the Iron Wings boiler was the closest thing I had to a heartbeat. When the gauges jittered, I felt it in my ribs. When the pistons exhaled, I breathed with them. Every rivet of the dragon-shaped hull was polished for the qualifying rounds of the Grand Steampunk Derby. Yet I still found myself pacing the deck at dawn, polishing non-existent smudges from the brass rigging claws. "Easy, girl," I whispered, patting the snout-shaped prow. Beyond the bay doors of Skyraker Hangar, gray morning clouds boiled over the cliff city of High Ventus. Any minute the horns would sound and racers would queue for inspection. Instead, a different sound cracked the air, an explosion in the eastern practice lanes. A plume of emerald steam spiraled upward, trailed by a familiar crimson pennant. My stomach dropped. Only one racer painted her exhaust emerald and trimmed her sails crimson. Lysandra Vale, pilot of the Zephyr Serpent, and my fiercest rival since cadet school. I should have walked away. Rivalries are oxygen in the Derby circuit. Sympathy is poison. Yet the sight of her dragon-winged craft limping, wings folded, smoke venting from its gunmetal belly, ignited something older than rivalry. I vaulted onto the Iron Wings backplate and hollered at the deckhands. "Release moorings! I'm taking her up! Captain Calder! The Derby marshals! Stuff the marshals! Someone's down!" I didn't add who. The crew obeyed, hands flying over crank locks and gear wheels. With a hiss, the Iron Wing leapt from its cradle, claws scraping the launch rail before catching the wind. Steam rolled past my goggles as I threw the throttle forward. Below, the canyon flats stretched like cracked parchment. The Zephyr Serpent lay strewn across a cluster of basalt spires, wings torn, tail jammed into a crevasse. I feathered the Iron Wing's ailerons, angling so that the brass talons could grasp a stable ridge. When the claws dug in, I unhooked my harness, grabbed the medical satchel, and rappelled down the winch line. Lysandra was half upright on a scrap of wing plating, her flight coat shredded, copper hair plastered to her temple with blood. Even injured, she glared at me like I'd stolen her best gear cogs. "Come to finish me off, Calder?" She coughed, tried to lever herself upright, and sank back with a hiss of pain. "Ease up!" I knelt, unbuckling the satchel. "I'm not here to gloat. You'll cost us both points for unauthorized flight, you know. You'll cost yourself a smashed skull if you keep arguing." I pressed a cloth to the gash above her brow. Her eyes fluttered. Boiler backfired. Sabotage, maybe. Couldn't eject ballast in time. I scanned the ruined engine housing. The scorch pattern looked deliberate. An acid charge on the fuel lines. Time to rupture mid-trial. Only one pilot was infamous enough. Baron Kestel, the aristocrat who believed titles should guarantee trophies. "We'll think about blame later," I said. "Right now, you need a lift." "You're not putting me in your machine. I'd rather crawl." I fought a smile. "Can you crawl with a fractured ankle?" She opened her mouth, closed it, and finally allowed me to splint the swelling joint. The field dressing empty, I clipped her harness to the winch. "Hold tight." When I signaled, the Iron Wing reeled us up, gears clacking like giant cicadas. We landed on the dorsal deck where my engineer, Twill, waited with a flask of willowbark rum. Lysandra accepted the flask, winced as she drank, then surveyed my ship. "You polished the wing spars. Nervous?" "Preparing to win," I corrected. Her laugh came out ragged, but genuine. "Bold as ever." I guided her to the infirmary cubby. "Derby rules say all racers must report on race day or forfeit. If you sign the withdrawal ledger, I'll fly you to medical." "I'm not withdrawing." "Lise, the heats start in 5 hours." She grabbed my wrist. Under the grease smears, her fingers were surprisingly warm. "Listen, the Zephyr's a lost cause, but what caused the sabotage was this." From an inner pocket, She produced a crystal the size of a quail's egg, glowing faint indigo, the rumored ether resonator. Legend said it could attune an airship's propulsive arrays to invisible wind vanes, slingshotting a racer at twice normal velocity. My throat dried. That's vapor myth. Feel it. She pressed it into my palm. The crystal vibrated, humming in sympathy with the Iron Wings boiler like two notes of the same chord. Kestel wanted it, she continued. He torched my fuel lines, trying to scare me into surrender. I ejected before the second blast. And you kept the prize. I was going to fit it tonight. Now. She tapped her splinted ankle with a rueful shrug. I won't pass pre-flight physical. Take it, Aaron. Win for me. Years of rivalry shouted to seize the chance. Instead, I heard a quieter voice, hers, saying my name differently than the jeering grandstands ever had. You'll race. I tucked the resonator back into her pocket. I'm entering you as co-pilot. You can't share a helm in the Derby. Rule 9A. A vessel may carry one auxiliary navigator if registered before the starting horn. You navigate, I pilot. The judges can't object. I offered my hand. Deal? She studied me, suspicion wrestling hope behind those storm-gray eyes. Finally, she clasped my wrist in the old academy grip. Deal. Provided we outrun Kestel and wipe that smug mustache off his face, I grinned. With pleasure. Twill and the deckhands tore panels from our cargo spines to fashion a second cockpit chair beside mine. While they worked, Lysandra and I pored over the Iron Wings burgundy schematics. I'd memorized every pressure limit and wing articulation angle. Yet her insights rearranged my understanding, like cogs slipping into a superior alignment. The dorsal thermal vents waste exhaust, she noted. Flip their louvers inward. Feed the waste heat to the auxiliary turbines. Extra 3 knots on the climb. And overheat the boiler? Not if we graph the resonator to the intake manifold. It redistributes oscillation. I stared. You studied the math? Dreamed it. She bit her lip. Since we were cadets, thought it might impress someone. My cheeks warmed hotter than the stoked furnace. I ducked my head over the blueprints to hide it. By noon, the Iron Wings stood transformed. The dragon hull gleamed like dawn iron. Twin helix veins protruded from the throat where the resonator's glow pulsed, feeding indigo veins across brass scales. Lysandra limped onto the bridge, bracing on my shoulder. Twill saluted. Captain, auxiliary navigator lodged and secured. Then let's race, I said, and the hangar doors parted. The Grand Derby course was a gauntlet of aerial madness, 30 league lengths through the Maelstrom arches, a descent beside the molten falls of Pyre Rift, then a sprint over the Mistjaw trenches to the orbiting finish platform. 9 ships formed at the starting ring, each one a mythic beast of riveted steel. Baron Kestel's gilded Gryphon hovered to starboard, its beaked prow dripping gold filigree. The Baron himself tipped his top hat when he spotted Lysandra hobble to the forward co-piloting console. You look pale, Miss Vale. Perhaps sit this one out. She flashed him a smile as sharp as a hacksaw. Wouldn't dream of it, darling. The starter suspended overhead on gyrofans. Racers ready. A flare gun barked azure fire. I rammed the throttle. The Iron Wings surged, resonator thrumming under my feet. At once, I felt the change, like sliding from choppy wake into glass water. We sliced ahead of the pack until only the Griffon clung to our flank, its gilded feather plates rattling. Maelstrom arches in 2 minutes, Lysandra called over the wind. Crosswind, 20 knots, west by north. Angle starboard, catch the spiral. I obeyed. The arches loomed. Basalt loops, suspended by unknown forces, everyone spitting lightning like impatient serpents. I slipped the iron wing into the first ring's throat. Electric arcs clawed for our hull, but skittered off the resonator's indigo field. We dived through circle after circle in an accelerating corkscrew. Behind me, the pack scattered, but the Griffon dogged our tail, its steam jets sizzling blue. "Baron's shadowing our slipstream," I muttered. "He can ride it until the rift," Lysandra said. "Then the thermal pockets will cook his boiler. Hold present course." I risked a sideways glance. Sweat beaded her brow, but her smile was fierce, alive. Something inside me fluttered dangerously. The basalt arches ended in open sky. Ahead, Pyre Rift split the crust of the world like glowing teeth. Lava spouts hurled ember rain upward, heating the draft to furnace levels. We dove. "Open vent louvers inward!" Lysandra shouted. I hit the switch. Waste heat channeled to the auxiliary turbines, giving us the promised 3-knot boost. The hull groaned, yet held. The Griffon tried to match our dive. Its hammered gold plating began to discolor under the thermal barrage. My communicator crackled. Baron Kestel's oily tenor seeped through. "Calder, that heat's suicide. Peel off, and I'll overlook your stolen property." I clicked transmit. "Heat's only deadly if your boiler tolerances are as thin as your honor." Static hissed as I cut the channel. Behind, a muffled bang signaled one of the Griffon's starboard ducts rupturing. Flames licked its tail section, but Kestel didn't break pursuit. "Stubborn goat," Lysandra growled. "Prepare for Mistjaw trenches. The resonator will need recalibration or will overshoot." I passed controls to her. Fingers flying over brass sliders, she tuned the crystal's facets, aligning ether frequencies I could scarcely name. The hum deepened into a chord that vibrated my bones. We cleared Pyre Rift with scorched but intact ailerons, diving into silver mist. The trenches were invisible canyons carved in cloud, walls of vapor hiding dagger peaks. One wrong slipstream and we'd rip a wing off. Resonator says vane current delta 4, port incline 7 degrees, Lysandra announced. "Do I trust math or my gut?" I murmured. "Trust me." I did. I banked left into an invisible corridor. Instantly, the Iron Wing accelerated on a tide of unseeable force, cannoning between mist pillars with uncanny grace. I felt rather than saw the corridor's twists, guided by her voice calling each nuance, "Eddy right! Now roll! Updraft in 3, 2, pull!" We burst from the last cloud bank like an arrow loosed from planetary gravity. The finished platform hovered a league ahead, crowd stands erupting in distant roars. Only one vessel kept pace. The battered Griffon, smoke trailing its wing seams, but momentum fierce. "He's spiking his pressure," Lysandra said. "Boiler's redlining." "He'll blow before he yields," I answered. Then we forced the blow. Remember air combat drills? Vent overpressure backwash. A little dirty for derby play. Baron played dirty first. I matched speed with the Griffon till we flew shoulder to shoulder. I could see Kestel's monocle fogged with sweat, his cravat loosened. He bared teeth at me, then at Lysandra, whose gaze stabbed colder than mountain ice. At her nod, I shut our portside intake briefly, letting exhaust compress. A heartbeat later, I reopened the vent full bore. Scalding steam slammed sideways. The Griffon's compromised starboard duct split wider. A geyser of flame erupted, and the noble racing ship spiraled into a controlled but humiliating skid toward an emergency cloud pad, whistles blaring. I leveled the Iron Wing, heart pounding. Ahead, ribbon flares marked the finish line. Crowds leaned over railings, steam binoculars trained. Lysandra laid a hand on my forearm. "Bring us home, Captain." The dragon ship roared. A final surge propelled us over the line. Brass sirens howled victory, while confetti and gear shavings rained from cannons. I cut the engines, gliding to the docking perch. When the deckhands secured the gangplank, I released my harness, knees weak with exhilaration. Cheers hammered the hull. Twill burst from below, waving a ledger seal. Official! Iron Wing first by 43 seconds. But the roar meant nothing until Lysandra looked at me, eyes luminous through soot and sweat. We did it, she breathed, as though she scarcely believed the word we. I reached for her gloved hand. Couldn't have, without you. Her fingers entwined mine. About time we stopped pretending the sky isn't big enough for both. I opened my mouth to answer and was tackled by officials who hauled us to the podium for pomp. Medals, speeches, camera flashes, the standard whirlwind. When Lord Commissioner Vanderley asked for comments, I adjusted the speaking trumpet. This victory belongs as much to Navigator Vale as to myself. And I glanced at her, hoping the tremor in my chest wasn't audible in my voice. I intend to make the partnership permanent, if she'll allow. Murmurs rippled through the grandstands. Lysandra stepped forward, taking the trumpet. Permission granted, she said, and kissed me full on the mouth. The crowd's gasp turned to thunder. Night draped high Ventus in amber lantern light. Celebrations echoed from balcony bars. But the Iron Wing's observation deck was quiet save for boiler purr and the distant rattle of fireworks. We leaned against the rail, sharing a bottle of Sky Berry wine. Tomorrow, I said, the Board of Steamanship will want the resonator for study. She swirled the bottle's contents. Let them replicate it. We made history first. Wind tugged strands of her copper hair across my shoulder. I smoothed them back, letting my thumb brush her cheek. The touch felt both daring and inevitable. Funny, she murmured, gaze on the constellations. All those years we spent circling each other in competition. We had to orbit before we could dock, I replied. She laughed softly, curling against me. Captain Calder, was that a romantic metaphor or engine talk? Both, I said. After all, you once told me the fastest way to a pilot's heart was through the boiler. I lied, she whispered, tilting her face toward mine. It's through trust. Our lips met again, slower this time, unhurried by crowds or trophies. Only the Iron Wing witnessed, vibrating with contentment around us. Above the ship, the Aurora unfurled emerald and indigo ribbons, the same hues as her damaged pennant, and the resonator's glow. We watched the lights dance, arms entwined, knowing that tomorrow new races would beckon, new rivals would rise. But tonight, the sky belonged to two pilots who finally realized that partnership could plot a better course than rivalry ever had. And somewhere deep in the Iron Wing's mechanical heart, the boilers pulsed like dragon wings, carrying us toward dawn.